So the British Columbia United Party is effectively dead at this point. But like any dying party worth their salt, the BC United are going to stick around and embarrass themselves as much as humanly possible until they finally get the message that BC residents are not going to vote for them in the next election and they should probably just dissolve at this point. This poll came out a couple of days ago showing that the BC United are in a distant third place, 8 points behind the BC Conservatives and being dominated by the NDP, who are far ahead of everybody else. To be fair, Leger did this poll, and they do have a little bit more of an urban bias compared to other pollsters, so BC NDP are probably being a little bit overpolled by them. But you shouldn't take that as a sign that the BC United has any chance of winning the next election. Overpolling the NDP or not, they are not going to catch up with the BC Conservatives. And in fact, the BC Conservatives have been absolutely cannibalizing the support of the BC United. But don't tell the BC United comms team that, because out of this poll, where they are 8% behind the next best party, they came out with these social media posts. They read, "It's clear the momentum heading into the next election is with the BC United and has turned against the BC Cons. Today's Leger poll has BC United up 3% from 3 weeks ago, while support for the BC Cons has plummeted 9%. No, it does not. It does not show that at all. I'm not sure if the BC United's comms teams need to be told this, but Leger and Main Street Research are not the same polling firm. They have their own polling methodologies, they have their own ways of getting a polling sample, and so you cannot compare these two polls together. The actual, like, these are what the polling results were between these two polls. Leger had the NDP up 17 points, and Main Street only had them up 6 points over the Conservatives, who the actual momentum of this election is with. The last Main Street poll, I believe done in September of last year, had the BC Conservatives within 8 points of the NDP. There's a consistent trend with Main Street showing that the BC Conservatives are rising, the United are falling, and the NDP are either staying where they are or contracting a little bit. If you actually look at the previous Leger poll, it actually showed that the Conservatives had gained since they last did a poll. So based on the way that Leger does their polling and the way that they collect their samples, it actually is demonstrating that the Conservatives have the momentum. But I guess the BC United just wanted to embarrass themselves as deeply as humanly possible. So they're pretending like they have momentum because between two different polling firms' polls, they are technically doing better, even though these have they have no effect on each other. These two polls are completely different data points. But whatever, the BC United are going to go down in flames. They might have far more seats right now than the BC Conservatives, but the problem is the BC United serves nobody. Here's an actual detailed result from the Leger poll that demonstrates all the problems that the BC United are having. This is mapping out which kind of federal parties the different provincial party supporters are planning on voting for. And this actually demonstrates why even the NDP is going to have some issues. So actually, the NDP is relying on 13% of people planning on voting for the Conservatives in the federal election, which I believe is going to start consolidating over to the Conservatives. But look at the United down there on third on the chart. It's showing that their party is split between Conservatives and Liberals. And whereas the Conservatives, the BC Conservatives, are mostly relying on Conservative federal voters. And the problem for both the United and the NDP is the Conservatives are way in front, in first place federally in BC. And I don't think Conservative Party voters are going to stick around with the BC United or NDP if the Conservatives become a real vehicle. And they are quickly becoming the real opposition vehicle against the NDP. The United doesn't know what they want to be. So they kind of oppose the NDP's decriminalization of drug policies, although they are the ones who introduced them back in the day when they were still called the BC Liberals. They're a party who is kind of fiscally conservative, not really socially conservative. They're really all over the place on every single issue. They're kind of pro-SOGI, they're kind of against it. So it's the party for nobody. And that is what's reflected in the polls. Yes, they can take two different polls and show that they did a little bit better in this one and the BC Conservatives did a little bit worse than this one, but it's not changing the fact that John Rustad is actually considered the real opposition to David Eby. And the only thing holding the Conservatives back at this point is just name recognition. As they campaign more and people realize the provincial Conservative Party is actually a real thing, because in the past it's kind of been a fringe party. Not that their ideas are fringe, it's just that people either vote for the BC NDP or the BC Liberals. And now the BC Conservatives are a real force, and they have, frankly, a better brand than the United. And that's another thing. Never change the name of your party randomly to as a unity move. If your party sucks, people aren't going to vote for it. You could name your party anything. And if you have good ideas and you're campaigning well and you have the right messaging, people will vote for you. Taking the dead brand of the BC Liberals, which was this kind of weird big tent shared party between Liberals and Conservatives, which was a marriage that was never going to last. You can't just slap United on the party and pretend that that's going to unify everybody. It's such a bureaucratic, dumb, it's someone who's been campaigning way too long in the early aughts, when that sort of thing might work. Early 2000s politics is very strange. Whenever there's a terrible campaign manager, it's usually someone who grew up managing in the early 2000s, where you could think, well, let's just say we're the unity party, and then people will vote for us. Not how it's going to work. You actually had name recognition as the BC Liberals, and now you have no name recognition at all. The only thing holding them up is people know who Kevin Falconson is, and so they're kind of willing to vote for the party, where they don't really know who John Rousted is. But as John Rousted's name recognition goes up, people will consolidate behind him, even with only 27% leadership approval with John Rousted, because 50% of people don't even know who he is. He is still dominating the BC United. That is pathetic for the BC United. If you're in British Columbia, guys, if you're voting for the BC United because you think in your local riding that they might have a better chance of beating the NDP, it's not going to happen in 6 months. In 6 months, the BC United are not going to be in a better position than they are now. They will be in a worse position. This Leger poll, this is just one detailed result that came out of it. But other ones showing the regionals were demonstrating that although the BC Conservatives are up 8 points on the United, but the conventional wisdom was that the BC Conservatives are going to do really well in rural areas, and then they're going to have a harder time breaking into Vancouver Island as well as Metro Vancouver. They were up on the BC United in all three of those regions. So what's the point of voting United? Your local riding is not going to survive the NDP by voting United. Voting Conservative is the only way you are going to be able to flip a Vancouver riding from orange to blue. The United offer nothing different than the NDP. And as Aaron O'Toole demonstrated in the 2021 federal election, just being the slight sidestep to the right of your left-wing opponents is not appealing to anybody. Conservative small business owners, people who work hard, people who don't get very big bloated public sector union checks, for not that much work, those people are insulted when you give them basically no reason to vote for you other than you're a little bit better than the other guys. These people work way too hard to be insulted that way. You better be a significant improvement over your NDP opponents or you're dead in the water. The NDP is very beatable in this election. They're up in front in the polls, and let's just say this Leger poll is the truth, and it's not that the Main Street one's more accurate. Let's just say Leger, for argument, is more accurate. The thing is, that same Leger poll showed that only 29% of British Columbians were in favor of keeping the provincial carbon tax. And remember, in the same poll, the BC Greens had 11%. The BC Greens are going to be three quarters of them are probably in favor of keeping the provincial carbon tax. That's kind of their thing. They are a Green party. So that leaves the BC NDP with only about 21% of people who are in favor of keeping the BC carbon tax. And even then, probably some BC United voters also want to keep the carbon tax because they're federal Liberal voters. So in reality, there's probably only about 15 to 18% of the 43% that the BC NDP have who are in favor of the carbon tax. That is a massive amount of people who can be stolen from the BC NDP. David Eby and the BC NDP are only surface level popular simply because for the last probably year and a half, they really haven't had an opposition. Once the BC Conservatives are the clear opposition to David Eby's party, then they will actually start surging even more than they already are. Right now, the BC Conservatives don't really have much of a budget. Once big donors start coming in for them, that's when they're going to start being the big competitors in these ridings against the NDP. Right now, they're doing well with basically no money. So if you live in BC, I will actually, in the description below, add in the links to the BC Conservatives Facebook page, X page, as well as their main website. Go sign up with them. Make sure you vote for them. Don't quibble about if the United or Conservatives are going to do better in your riding or not. Guys, we're 6 months away from the election, and the United is falling. The election's not happening tomorrow. Back the main party who can actually beat them in the province overall, not looking at 338 projections and seeing if in your Vancouver riding, the BC United technically has the edge. It doesn't matter in 6 months. Anyways, sorry for the little mini rant that went on to, but I hate when people start trying to unskew polls and think, well, but if I'm in this area, I should be voting for this party. No, vote for the party you guys want to vote for. The people at the end of the day vote for the party they like. Don't vote for a party you don't like simply because, like, in theory, they're going to win. This is where I'll never attack PPC people for voting PPC. If you just like them better than the Conservatives, more power to you. Never vote for them for like abstract reasons where are the Conservatives going to do this and is the PPC a little bit stronger in this platform area? Do you think that you're going to get the better result with one party or the other on policy as well as the electoral outcome? Don't base your voting intentions purely based on policy or purely based on electoral outcomes, or you will make very clownish decisions electorally. Vote for the party that you overall like better, not in like certain tiny little microscopic areas or purely based on who can win. That's a silly way of doing things. Anyways, so I have all those BC Conservative links in the description below for you guys. Also, if you live in the city of Calgary, on the west side of Calgary, I, Wyatt Claypool, am running for the Conservative Party nomination for Calgary Signal Hill. This is what the riding will look like after boundaries get redrawn. So if you live in this area of property, buy a membership, visit my website. Also, you can donate to the National Telegraph's legal fund. We have a billionaire developer suing us for no reason. It's been more than 2 years this lawsuit's been going on, and they still have not provided evidence. We have defamed them or said anything inaccurate. All of our reporting was mostly based off a Globe and Mail article anyways. So it's just someone trying to bully us because, lawfare exists and people can use the legal system to attack people they don't like. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. I hope you like the new set. Hopefully it doesn't feel like you're at a crap on the wall restaurant, but I think I generally like it. So hopefully you guys do too. Have a good one. See you tomorrow.